They exist, but you were never supposed to know how much. Not exactly. Because every year, billions, sometimes trillions, move through systems that don't operate like normal government spending. They don't follow the same rules. They aren't fully disclosed. And in some cases, they can't be audited at all. They're called black budget programs. And officially, they're explained as necessary. Classified projects, national security, advanced research, things the public doesn't need to see. But the deeper you look, the less that explanation holds together. Because the issue isn't that the programs are secret. The issue is that no one seems to know where the limits are, or if there are any. Every year, governments release budget summaries. Numbers broken down into categories. Defense, healthcare, infrastructure. And then there's a section that doesn't behave like the others. A portion of funding labeled in ways that sound controlled. I aren't transparent. Terms like special access programs, contingency operations, intelligence allocations. At first glance, it looks structured, organized, accounted for. But when investigators, journalists, and even internal auditors try to trace the details, they hit a wall. Because the structure exists on paper, not in practice. There have been moments, rare ones, where fragments slip through. Reports that don't line up. Accounts that don't balance. In some cases, trillions of dollars listed as unaccounted adjustments. Not missing, officially. Just untraceable. And when questioned, the answers don't clarify anything. They deflect. They generalize. They return to the same justification: national security. But here's where it becomes harder to ignore. Because even within the system, people have raised concerns. High-level officials, defense insiders, financial auditors, people whose job it is to track where money goes. And some of them have said the same thing in different ways. They can't fully follow it. Not because they aren't allowed to, but because the system itself doesn't allow for it. Programs nested inside programs. Funding routed through layers that don't connect cleanly. Authorizations that exist without visible origin points. It creates a structure where money moves, but accountability doesn't. And that raises a question that doesn't go away. If the oversight exists, why can't it see everything? Some argue that this is intentional, that true black budget programs are designed to operate beyond conventional control, that even within government, access is restricted to such a degree that no single entity has the full picture. A system built not just on secrecy, but on fragmentation. Others believe something else entirely, that over time, these systems have grown too large, too complex, too detached from their original purpose. Not a controlled network, but something that expanded beyond control and now operates in a space where oversight is more theoretical than real. There are also claims, difficult to verify but persistent, that some programs don't just lack transparency, They lack documentation altogether. No clear paper trail. No consistent reporting structure. Only references, mentions, fragments, and budgets that continue to be approved. Because once something becomes classified at a certain level, questioning it becomes nearly impossible. Not because it's proven necessary, but because access to evaluate it doesn't exist. And that creates a strange dynamic where the existence of the program justifies itself because it's secret, because it's important, because it must be. But that logic depends on trust, and trust becomes difficult when the numbers don't align. There have been moments where officials publicly acknowledged discrepancies, large ones, statements that hinted at massive financial gaps. But those moments don't last. They fade. They get buried under new headlines, and the system continues operating the same way. Funding flows. Programs continue, and the public sees only what it's allowed to see, which may be the most important part, because black budget programs aren't just hidden. They're designed to exist in a space where visibility isn't expected, where the absence of information doesn't trigger alarm. It reinforces the idea that everything is under control. But what if that assumption is wrong? What if the lack of visibility isn't a feature of control, but a sign of something else? Something that doesn't need to be explained, because it doesn't need approval. That possibility is difficult to prove, but it's also difficult to dismiss, because the pattern repeats. Year after year, budget after budget, questions raised, answers deferred, and numbers that don't fully reconcile. So the question isn't whether black budget programs exist. That part is confirmed. The question is, how much of what exists is actually understood? And if no one can fully audit it, who exactly is tracking where it all goes? Because if the system is working, someone should know. And if no one knows, then the system may not be working the way it's supposed to. It may be operating in a space beyond verification, beyond accountability, and beyond the point where anyone can say with certainty what it's really doing. And once something reaches that level, it's no longer just secret. It's something else entirely. Something that exists without needing to explain itself.